part about the spring game was that they actually played a game. And I already see the chat talking about how we can't get a good gauge or a good read on what's actually real and what might just be a bunch of hype, since a lot of the guys on the defense didn't play. And obviously it's a game where the offense had an edge. There were a lot of penalties that went uncalled. But regardless of all of that, we got to watch a game. We got to watch them in a live moment where they didn't fumble the ball, where they didn't have a bunch of interceptions or a bunch of turnovers, like we watched last year in the spring game. And I said this in my spring game preview video. The main thing I was looking for and really just hoping for was that they didn't fumble it left and right, because I didn't want to see something that would lead to their demise during the season. And based on what we saw today, it did not feel like a negative moment from the turnover category. We had a fumble that Dylan Raiola fell on immediately. It wasn't some nonsense like Jeff Sims last year trying to pick it up and run and then obviously fumbling a second time and screwing things up that way. We saw the interception, but it wasn't an interception on the quarterbacks. It was an interception on the receiver. It was on Demetrius Bell, who then went down with a knee injury a few plays later, which was pretty unfortunate. I think I saw that Bly Hill got hurt too. Steven Sipple said that. I didn't see that one, but that would be a problem since he's projected to be a starting quarterback. But regardless of all of that, I'd like to know who all got injured, what the outcome was. But either way, there is no preventing injuries in football. You're going to go and play these games and these scrimmages and these intense practices to get you ready to play against NFL caliber Big Ten guys. And I'm a victim of 2 ACL injuries, right? When I was playing, I had one in a game. I had one in practice. It's not avoidable. You can't just say we're going to rest all of our guys and not play. So props to Matt Rule for saying we're going to get out there and we're going to try and stay as healthy as possible, but we're going to make sure our guys are in position to learn and get the most experience that they can in a full contact kind of moment. So yeah, what's up? We're back. Football season's officially upon us. We're 2 months away from the NCAA football game coming out, and I'm going to use that as our marker from now on as the official start of the football season, because back when I was growing up, that was the game that kind of set it off. You'd get that game in July, and then you had really 2 months to warm up, learn all the players on your team, learn all the players on the other teams. And then by the time football season rolled around, it didn't feel like it took that long to get there from the time the NCAA game came out. So we're 2 months from that. We're really getting into it. I'm excited for it. Today, the attendance, 60,000, 6,000 less than last season. And I think part of that was probably because of the weather and the tornadoes yesterday. Now, I don't live in Nebraska, so I have never experienced a tornado. I live in wildfire country, so I've definitely seen people have to flee their homes and watch people lose their homes because of wildfires. But for all the people who were impacted by the tornadoes in Nebraska yesterday, I'm really sorry that all happened. And I saw that there's some tornado relief merch out, so I'm going to go and buy some of that on the Nebraska website after we do this stream. They popped that up during the spring game today, but maybe that's one of the reasons that they had less attendance than they had last year. 60,000 today as opposed to 66,000 last season. But regardless, 60,000 for a practice is freaking crazy. Nebraska once again turning up and being excited for a team who has not been to a bowl game in years. So there's all the reason to stay home and not go out and support a team that's not winning games. But Nebraska fans always coming out and supporting as they should. Hucking Fuskers, thank you for the $5 super chat. Prayers for the tornado victims, but it was a fun game to watch. Do you think accuracy from the quarterbacks will improve? You know, you've got 3 quarterbacks. You've got 2 who are going to need to play and one who's going to be, we'll call him a desperate reserve. That's Daniel Kalen. Nebraska's starting 2 quarterbacks are ready to play today. Heinrich Harburg has improved for sure. His throwing is going to be what his throwing is going to be, right? He's not a pocket passing quarterback like Raiola is. He doesn't have that gift that Raiola, for whatever reason, was just blessed with. That dude came out today, was on fire the entire time. He started off, I think, 4 for 4. And when he started 4 for 4, the other 2 quarterbacks were 1 for 8. I think that's what it was. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember stuff I saw on Twitter. Regardless, I don't think we need to worry too much about the quarterbacks, right? You worry about your number 1 quarterback because he's going to be playing 80% of the snaps this season. The number 2 quarterback, let's say he plays 20% of the time. That would be Heinrich Harburg. Can he just be effective enough? And I think Heinrich Haarberg is going to be. Really, he's going to be a change of pace guy. He's going to be a guy who they want to bring in on third down or in the third quarter when the defense is worn out, and then you have a full steam train coming at you. Remember when Heinrich Haarberg was at his peak last year, before any of the injuries, before anyone really knew how to stop him? He was trucking people. He was finding ways to hit lanes and getting into the end zone. Huge runs. I mean, he had multiple. This year, you're going to have Dylan Raiola and then the change of pace behind him with Heinrich. I think that Dylan's accuracy is already fantastic. He's been at Nebraska now for 4 months, and I mean, he's only been through X amount of practices. He was solid, and his number one threat, or his number one weapon, is a deep threat in Jalen Lloyd, who looks like the second coming of J.D. Spielman or Trey Palmer. My God, he's the best receiver on the team. I'm going to dub him that now. Isaiah Nair, solid. Jamal Banks, we didn't get to see much of. Ja'Cory Barney could be the future, but Jalen Lloyd is the now. Let me tell you, that guy looked awesome. And I know we're going to say, well, all the DBs didn't play. The defense didn't have all the pressure. You have to handicap him a little bit. Well, we already got to see him last year. 6 catches, 250-something yards, tied with Marvin Harrison Jr. as the biggest deep threat receiver in the conference. Come on, Jalen Lloyd is the man, and today he showed it. Raiola and him are going to have a serious connection. So I'm excited regardless of the quarterbacks having some issues because, like I said, I'm not expecting Daniel Kaelin to play this year. He is a third-string quarterback. He is a developmental guy. He looked good, but he looked good relative to other freshman quarterbacks. Dylan Raiola looked good relative to senior quarterbacks. He's a specimen, right? So it's hard to compare those two. It's not like you're getting a fair shake when you're talking about a guy who's coming in as a project versus a guy who's coming in to start today. So Daniel Kaelin did his thing, and he had some missed throws. Some were way off target. Yeah, he had one to Jalen Lloyd that I think was just a misread, right? And then there were a couple that were thrown behind guys. Regardless of all of that, he was efficient enough, and he'll be able to develop into a guy who can play for a Big Ten school. So it's exciting. I mean, all the quarterbacks did their thing. Heinrich Haarberg, though, he had one massive throw. He was standing on the logo. So what's that? The 50-yard line. He hit one. It was Ja'Cory Barney, I think, at the pylon. Perfect throw on the money. If Heinrich Haarberg made throws like that consistently, it'd be a serious quarterback competition between him and Dylan, because Dylan's great. But if you added in the element of I've got the legs and we're a team who likes to run the ball, it'd be hard to keep him off the field. Really quick, I want to touch on this. There are a lot of guys who look like they look the part and they look like they should be on the field, but they're in the wrong position. Heinrich Haarberg could be a guy where he's not getting enough play time at quarterback, but in reality, he could be an NFL player because he's such a physically gifted athlete, right? He looks like he should play in the NFL one day. He's a freak in terms of size. He's extremely fast for his size. Obviously, he can catch it, he can run it, he can throw it. I was in Japan last week, and I went and saw a friend who I've known on social media for a long time. He played at New Mexico State. He played linebacker. I think he was all conference. He ended up getting picked up by the Saints. Things didn't work out. He ended up going to Japan. Well, he's now the face of the Japanese Football League. He's the best player there, and it's not even close. But he's not playing linebacker. He's playing running back. And I was asking him, when we were in junior college, that's when we struck up a friendship over Twitter. I was like, you were like a superstar linebacker. He said, yeah, but when I was in high school, I was a running back. And I played college. I played linebacker in college because I wanted to make sure I was on the field early. And that worked out for him at the time. But when he got to the NFL, he wasn't good enough as a linebacker. But now he's a superstar in Japan. Obviously, you got to go relative to your competition. But he said, I think if I would have stuck at the right position, then I would have had a much better chance to make it in the NFL. And if I would have played running back, that would have worked out for me. So you never know what's going to happen with Heinrich Haarberg, but you hope that the athletes who belong at the next level can find a way to get on the field. And I don't know what's going to happen with Heinrich this year, but it's hard for me to imagine him sitting on the sideline. So Raiola, no question, is the number one. Does Heinrich Haarberg find another role? Do they sub him in enough to make it worth his while? I don't know, but that dude's a serious talent, and I hope he doesn't sit on the bench for too long. Jim, I think it's Jim. Thank you for the 777. 1-0. That's the beauty of a spring game. You can't lose. Yes, a spring game, but we've got a lot to look forward to. Stay healthy in GBR. Thank you for the support, Jim. People say that you can't lose in the spring game, but you can. Last year, we lost in the spring game. Last year, with all of those turnovers and the penalties and the nonsense we witnessed, it all carried over to the season. So today was actually a win. It was a 1-0, and there was a chance to go 0-1. So I'm impressed by the way the coaches handled this. I'm excited that they were able to bring out all these guys and get so many different players, reps in the system. Obviously, they wanted to showcase and highlight the ability to pass the ball. They wanted to prove it. They wanted to show that we're not going to be that heavy run team this year, and we're not going to just rely on the running backs to get it done. We have quarterbacks now who can air it out, and we have receivers, most importantly, receivers who we did not have last season who can stretch the field. My God, go back to Jalen Lloyd. I'm telling you, I'm going to be so hyped for that dude because I know he's the future at Nebraska. For the next couple of years, he will be the number one receiver. There's this gut feeling in me telling me that he's the one we got to watch out for. Isaiah Nair, I want to talk about him too. He was the second receiver who stood out to me. It was really him or Ja'Cory Barney. Ja'Cory Barney as a true freshman. Let's talk about Nair. Big, fast. They like to throw him short balls and then give him the chance to run. He had one that was, it was called back because I can't remember who it was, but someone had like a late hit or a crack block or something. And then I think he either stepped out or there was another penalty, like a face mask. Regardless, Nair had multiple catches and he looked like one of the most balanced receivers. He looked like he's what I kind of expected. He's balanced. He's a possession guy mixed with a run after the catch guy, whereas I think Jamal Banks is going to be more of a possession guy. We didn't see much Jamal Banks today, but we did see Ja'Cory Barney. He had the kick return that probably would have gone for a touchdown if he would have seen Tristan Alvano wasn't on his team. And then you had a few catches. One was the one right over the middle where it went for a first down. He would have got lit up, but the fact that he held on to it was a big one. It converted for a first down. So multiple catches by him. Alex Bullock, he's a key returner in that room. He had a couple good ones. And then I think it was Daniel Kalen maybe or Luke Longval who overthrew him to the end zone. But regardless, Alex Bullock looks good. Keelan Smith, freshman, came in. He had a couple catches on the last drive. Nebraska has depth at receiver now. They've got multiple guys who can catch it. And last year, we couldn't say the same thing. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot to look forward to. Thank you for joining the Corn Crazed Army, Hucking Fuskers. Your name. It's a little bit of a tongue twister for me not to mess that up and start cussing on the stream. Serial says, those absolute dimes from Dylan Raiola got me dreaming of the potential of his next couple of years at Nebraska. Man, it's reminiscent of Adrian Martinez. When he first came in the spring game, he looked really good. And then obviously he started right out the gate. And in his first game, he looked amazing. Are we going to see that same energy from Dylan Raiola? If I had to predict it right now, I would say yes. He's got the composure. He's got the confidence. He looks like a Big Ten quarterback. Dude is huge. He should be in high school right now. And he's like 6'3", 225. Looks like Patrick Mahomes. Everything. His swag, his helmet, everything. Well, okay, the helmet, the only difference with him and Mahomes is Mahomes wears that Zenith and he wears the Revo Speed. The Speed Flex. And then he's got a visor. But outside of that, same wristbands on his arm. He's got the one sleeve on the arm, the leggings, the whole thing. Everything about him is Patrick Mahomes. You could tell he's a Mahomes fan, which whatever it takes to play like Mahomes, do your thing, just be successful. And from what I saw today, it looked like he's going to be early on in his career. Joseph Herzl says, Rule said that Bell's injury was significant and Hill's injury was semi-significant. Really sad to see. Both had huge potential. Yeah, Demetrius Bell, he's another receiver who was playing in the slots today. He looked really good. I'm sure, based on how it went down, I'm sure it's going to be something that keeps him out for this season, which would be really unfortunate. I don't know what semi-significant means, if that's like a smaller tear or something. I don't know. Don't know what to make of it. It's unfortunate. But like I said earlier on in this video, you have to play and you have to be in position. Those injuries can happen at any time. And all these guys know it. We all played football, right? We know how precious each play is because, yeah, injuries happen way too often. So unfortunate that it happened, but there's no preventing it. You have to be out there, putting yourself in position to get better, putting yourself in position to succeed, 6-7 months from now when you're playing against guys who are training at just as high of a level today, right? Those guys in Michigan aren't slowing up, so Nebraska players can't either. Richard, thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate the support. Anybody else notice how Matt puts the whole whistle into his mouth? Anyways, Dylan looks very smooth in play action. Okay, I didn't look at Matt Rule's mouth like that, I'm going to be honest. The last thing I remember about Matt Rule was the chapstick incident when he was rubbing chapstick or licking his lips or whatever he was doing. Oh, yeah, he was licking his lips and we said he needed chapstick. That's what it was. But outside of that, I don't pay attention to Matt Rule's mouth that much outside of what he's talking about. Dylan looks smooth in play action. Dylan looks smooth under center. Dylan looks smooth out of shotgun. He looks smooth any way he did it. You could tell he's had a lot of reps. He's played in a lot of different systems and they're building this offense around his skill sets. They're making sure that whatever they put out there in front of him, he can execute it. And I don't know if there's anything he couldn't didn't execute. Obviously, he's not a dual threat running quarterback, but he did escape the pocket a couple times and not throw interceptions. I think that was one of the most impressive things about him. He didn't force anything. He didn't try and make any bad reads. He didn't make any bad reads, right? If he saw that the defense had it covered, he would either run it off to the sideline, he'd burn the ball into open space, or he'd just throw it over the receiver's head where only he could catch it. There were 2 times in the end zone, I think on a 2nd and 10 and a 3rd and 10, where he fired the ball to Roman Mangini once. Who was the second receiver? Or maybe it was a tight end. It doesn't matter. He fired the ball to Roman Mangini. He couldn't go up and get it. The second one might have been to Ja'Cory Barney or somebody like that. Same thing. It was too high, but it was in the only spot where the receiver could catch it. And if you're going to throw a ball like that, at least it's just burning it out, giving the receiver a chance to go up and get it instead of just throwing it away, right? Dylan has that potential to thread the needle. We watched him on a 2-point conversion. He fired it between a corner and a linebacker, I think, and it hit Alex Bullock right in the numbers. They converted the 2-point conversion, and it was a throw that only you could trust Dylan Raiola'S to make, because a lot of other quarterbacks aren't going to be able to see it, right? They're not going to be able to say, okay, the receiver's going to come across right here in between 2 dudes, and I'm going to feed it at the same exact time between those guys. That's an NFL throw, and that's what I talk about when I say Dylan is gifted. He has something that a lot of these other quarterbacks don't have, and you're just born with it. I was talking to my dad about this the other day. He watches a lot of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning conversations, and he's a big fan of those guys, and he said, those guys, it's not like they just trained for a long time and they became really good quarterbacks. No, they were born different. Their mind works differently. They could tell you all the keys to their success. They could go and coach a player and say, hey, here's what you've got to do. But if the player doesn't have it, if it's not innate inside of them, they're not going to be able to succeed at that level, right? Dylan has what Tom Brady has and has what Peyton Manning has. Some guys are born with it and some aren't. And Dylan's just a special player, and we saw that today. Again, I don't want to get too hyped up, but the whole world's going to be hyped up on him now. I haven't even checked Twitter yet, but I guarantee you when I go and look there are going to be highlights of him. There are going to be a bunch of people talking about, oh, Dylan Raiola to Jalen Lloyd, and look at Dylan Raiola's perfect ball, and da-da-da. It's going to be out there. And this is the beauty about him. He came to Nebraska knowing he was going to be the starting quarterback. I'm not saying he wasn't going to have to compete to win the job. No. What I'm saying is he came in with the confidence of, I watched them play last year. I know what my skill set and my ability is. I know how hard I'm willing to work. I know that I fit this system, and I'm going to make something happen. And today isn't going to boost his ego. It's not going to be like, oh, well, now the whole world knows I'm good. He already knew this about himself. He came in here level-headed, and he said, I'm going to win this job, and people are going to be excited for me. They're going to cheer when I come on the field for my first play, which they did. They're going to get overly excited on social media and tweet at me and talk about how I'm the next coming of whoever, and I'm going to win the Heisman. Won't phase him because he knows he's got one task at hand. It's to win football games. It's to go out there, complete his passes, make his reads, look like Patrick Mahomes or whatever other else goals he's got. I'm excited for him. Doug, I missed your super chat. Hang on. Doug, thank you for the $2. I appreciate the support. He says Raiola looked great, pass heavy today. I think that was kind of the emphasis of the day, right? We already know what the run game looks like at Nebraska. We know what they have the potential to do. Although the running back room looks a little bit different. But they did like to focus on the pass to make sure that they could prove to themselves and show the offense what it's going to look like to throw it deep downfield, right? The running back game, let's talk about that for a second. You had Emmett Johnson come out, and he was kind of the number one back. That dude is fierce. He ran like he is the number one running back, and he ran like he's the most explosive guy. He popped through the hole. He made good reads and he followed his blockers. When he got hit, it was like he was the one delivering it, right? He wasn't going to be knocked back. He was falling forward every single time. Dowdell was good too, but I see why Dowdell isn't the guy who's being talked about as much. He didn't look as explosive. He actually was a bit like Gabe Ervin. Not as big and not as built as Gabe Ervin because that dude looks like a bodybuilder, but Dowdell's much bulkier than Emmett Johnson is. Not as shifty, definitely a guy who can catch balls out of the backfield. And I think that's what the emphasis is going to be for this running back group. Run the ball out of shotgun, right? On some little delays or draws. Catch the ball out of the backfield, whether that be screens, whether it be out routes, whether it be a little like 5-yard, whatever you call this. I mean, they're going to be running little routes and they're going to be trying to make plays in space. I think Emmett Johnson, as it stands right now, definitely looks like the guy who has the most potential to make something happen from that position. If you're going to line it up and go with a fullback in front of him, maybe you put Dowdell because he's more of a power runner. But they did that once. I don't know if he had a fullback leading the way, but they definitely had Dowdell back there, and they ran it from I formation, and he scored a touchdown. So I thought it was good. Pass heavy today, but we got to see what the run game could look like. And keep in mind, we're going to see a lot more. Today was a very vanilla game plan, and we only got to see a very limited amount of what this offense is really going to look like. So pass heavy, we'll see a lot more run during the season. I'm hoping they find a way to incorporate Heinrich Haarberg, because I'm telling you, that dude is a specimen. He's a freak. He is so fast. And right when he took off, I was like, man, he's going to be such a problem for these Big Ten defenses to stop when they're in this rhythm of, we've got to stop Dylan Raiola from throwing it over our heads, right? Husker Nation, thank you for the $5 super chat. Dylan looked absolutely amazing. Looked like a younger Mahomes in training for the NFL. He's built like an NFL quarterback, and I think that's the craziest thing about him. There are so many freshmen who come in, and they have to be developed, and they have to be turned into what they're going to be in the future. This guy walked on the field and looked the part day one. It's crazy because the way that sports are going, right? Guys are spending a lot of money to get developed and get trained from a much younger age. And I think that's why you're seeing faster 40 times in the NFL. Guys are training to be pro athletes. It's different. When my parents were growing up, they weren't like, oh, well, I'm going to train to be a professional football player, and I'm going to go and spend a bunch of money with a trainer and all that. It's just a different time. Now you've got 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds going to specialized coaches, learning how to run routes, learning how to run 40s. I mean, Dylan's been groomed to be a superstar quarterback since he was super young. And so now he's arrived and he looks the part. It's very cool that Nebraska has a guy like this, because there's only a few in every recruiting class, right? You've got the Trevor Lawrence, you've got the Tua, you've got these 5-star names who come from random places and then go to the biggest schools, go to Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, USC, Texas, and now Nebraska has one. And I think what's so cool as a Nebraska fan is you see the separation between Dylan and everyone else, because Nebraska doesn't have 10 Dylans. Georgia does. Georgia has not 10, but they've got 3 or 4 of them, right? They've got, and if you look at different positions, maybe they do have 10. They've got a Dylan at receiver, a Dylan at offensive line, a Dylan at running back, a Dylan at quarterback. So the separation and the gap doesn't look as big, whereas a Nebraska fan watches him come on the field and it's like, whoa, this is the best player on the field and potentially going to be one of the best players to ever come through these gates, right? It's really interesting to see. Again, I'm not trying to hype him up or trying to over exaggerate what the potential is. I'm not trying to say Nebraska's going to win 11 games this year. They're going to have a Heisman quarterback anytime soon. But I am trying to make sure it's clear that this guy is special and that they have something in their pocket right now that could lead them to 8-9 wins, something Nebraska hasn't achieved in a really long time. And if the other teammates around him perform at the level that we would expect them to, they have a massive future. And these next 3 years are going to be exciting as hell for Matt Rule, because they've got the one guy leading the way who they need to be exceptional, the quarterback, right? It's exciting. Rod, thank you for the $20 super chat. Looking good. Ready for the season. GBR. Rod, were you over at that spring game today? He texted me, offered me a ticket, I think. I obviously couldn't go. I'm over here in California. I spent the last 2 weeks traveling. I went to Japan, went to DC, came home just in time for the spring game. Got my spring game preview up a few days ago. You know, we're revving up for college football season. We've got May, June, July, August. We got 4 months left. I'm going to start making content when we get to June, July. I think that's when I really start to rev back into it, because it takes a lot of time, and it's like you got to get into a different mental space. I work all day on my other projects, my other work, and then for me to remove myself completely, sit down, work on an outline for a video, work on some scripting, do all my notes, it's a big task, right? So I like to do it all kind of in a bunch. So if I can start in June, July, when I can knock out 5-6 videos in that 1 month, it's probably going to be easier for me. So we're getting back to season. I'm excited for it, but really my content starts 2 months from now. And what's most exciting for me is, like I said earlier in the video, the NCAA football game coming out. I'm 30 years old, but when I was 13, 14, 15, I was playing that game religiously. We all were. You guys remember what it was like. And I just can't wait to get back that feeling of going online and playing against random people and actually having a good team to play with a solid defense. Let's see here. James, thank you for gifting all these memberships. I appreciate you. All the Corn Crazed. I renamed our membership to the Corn Crazed Army. I didn't know you could do that, but now everybody's part of the Corn Crazed Army when you're a member. Noah, Thank you for the $5 super chat. Wasn't able to watch the game, but highlights look good. Hashtag Nebraska together. This state needed this game today. Round 2 of high risk tornadoes tonight. Jeez, the tornadoes just don't stop, I guess. Again, I've never been in a tornado before, but my cousin lives, he lives about 15 minutes from the stadium in Lincoln, and he was sending me videos. And the video he sent me is like a tornado right over some apartments. I was like, Jesus, they're really that close. I didn't realize tornadoes would get up in your grill like that. Like you could be that close to them, obviously. I knew tornadoes would tear through residential areas, but I didn't know you could be that close. I would have thought you got to evacuate it. It looks pretty dangerous, but yeah. Hopefully every part of the Corn Craze Army is safe out there. I saw someone mention that Luke McCaffrey got drafted yesterday. Actually, Nebraska's first draft pick. Luke McCaffrey was a 3rd round pick. I was surprised that a lot of Nebraska fans didn't realize Luke McCaffrey had such a good season at Rice. I think he went for like 1,000 yards. I thought he was going to be a 2nd round pick. He ended up dropping to the 3rd, but so far that's Nebraska's only draft pick. I don't think Nebraska's going to have a draft pick this year, but the future looks bright. I was talking to somebody else about all of Nebraska's potential guys coming out in the next 2 or 3 classes. You got Cam Lenhart, Princewell Umanmielen. Guys, I'm sick and my voice is gone. Princewell Umanmielen. I think that's what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. You've got Dylan. You've got Jalen Lloyd. You've got Fedoni and Borkercher. You've got Bayer, who looked good last year. There's a lot of guys. Isaac Gifford, Tommy Hill. Anyway, the point is this draft is kind of frustrating for Nebraska because, man, we should have more guys getting in there. But at the end of the day, Ty Robinson's going next year. Nash Hutmacher's probably going next year. Nebraska's going to be well represented on draft day. Just not yet. You know what I'm saying? Devon says, what part of Cali, if you don't mind me asking? I'm out here in 29 Palms. I live in LA. I live in Hollywood, right in the center where all the homeless people are at Sunset and Vine, right in the middle of it all. But you guys, I think this is my last year in LA, and then I'm gonna have to choose a different home. It's just gotten too grungy, too dirty. We're gonna move on to greener grass in a different state, I think. Let's see here. Bryce says, how many recruits do we end up with from the spring game? So Nebraska's had some commitments in the last few days. I have talked about this multiple times. I'm not big on off-season recruiting because I think that there is so much that happens between September and December when they finally sign that the recruits who are committing today might not be fully bought in or might not stick with that commitment. Now, a ton of them do honor their commitment, but I just don't like to get too excited about it. I don't like to talk about them too much because, yeah, it's just, they're too wishy-washy. A lot of guys are like, hey, there are Nebraska fans out there who will follow me on Twitter if I go and commit today or if I go and take a visit there. And I don't like to give them energy because they're just flirting with us to get us excited and then end up going to Texas, right? So I don't think too much about recruiting. I don't look too much into recruiting. I mean, this time last year, I think Dylan Raiola was committed to Georgia, right? So you just never know what's going to happen till the final hour. I do know that Christian Jones was there. That's Nebraska's #1 priority. I think Christian Jones was there. He's the linebacker from Omaha. I think he's a 4-star, the best player in the state, obviously, and that's the one who Nebraska really wants to get. So there were a few guys like that. I think TJ Lateef from Orange Lutheran, he's the quarterback. There were definitely some recruits there visiting today, but I don't get that into recruiting until we really get closer to the season because guys are too wishy-washy. Omar, thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you. Guys, Omar's my friend from back home. I got a little confused when I first saw his name popped up. I was like, Omar? Omar's my boy. Omar lives in Orange County too, the only one. He says he's surprised how bad LA is every time he goes. Yeah, it's just getting worse and worse, let me tell you. I'm from Orange County. I'm from Villa Park, and I lived in Newport before I moved to LA. Z-Guy says, how excited are you about Coleman? Rule said he gained 28 pounds of muscle and is now at 220. I'm pumped for Coleman. You know, he got to play a bit last year, but we never really saw him thrive. I heard that He came in, he didn't really know the playbook. He was still trying to learn. High expectations early on for him because just like Dylan Raiola, he's physically gifted, extremely fast, big body, ready to play immediately. But the reality is, as a true freshman to come in and play, it's really freaking hard to do. So Coleman, coming in as a sophomore, understands the playbook a lot more. Now he has a quarterback who might be a little bit more accurate feeding him the ball. Once he's fully healthy and ready to roll, I'm excited to see what he could do. 220-pound receiver. That's beastly. That's kind of like Janiron Bonner. We saw what Janiron did today. He was playing tight end last year. Originally came in, I think he came in with Scott Frost, right? Came in with Scott Frost as a receiver. They switched his position. Now he's back to receiver, had some really good catches. The big-bodied receivers is what Nebraska was lacking last year. They had a bunch of small guys. And now with Isaiah Nair, Jamal Banks, Malachi Coleman, Bonner, Alex Bullock, you've got some big receivers out there. So it's a big deal. Some of the freakishly fast ones are smaller, right? Like Jalen and who was the other one? Demetrius Bell. Some smaller guys are out there, but I like to have big bodies because when you're playing in the Big Ten, you get worn out having to block, right? If you're going to be a big blocker on the outside, blocking for whoever's running the ball, got to make sure that you can take a beating throughout the entire game. Warson, thank you for the $5 super chat. He said, just joined. Dylan looks legit. Wide receiver room looked way better too. GBR. I think that's the biggest takeaway, right? And thank you for the $5. The biggest takeaway is that Nebraska has the receiving room that they didn't have last year. But not only the receiving room, they have the quarterback who can handle the ball that couldn't handle it last year. No knock on Harburg. Harburg came in and he did his thing. The quarterback before Harburg, though, he had his issues. Dylan, paired with this receiving group, is going to make this offense look so much different. Think about the tight ends. I saw Luke Lindenmeyer out there blocking. Ian Flint had a catch. I think he's a true freshman. Borkercher had multiple catches. He had one right over the middle from Harburg that could have gone for a touchdown with a couple more blocks. Thomas Fedoni had some great catches and ran great after him. He had one of the first catches early on in the game. It was a little out route. He caught it, ran it for 16 yards. Then on the play where one of the quarterbacks was getting sacked, it was Harburg, I think. Harburg was getting sacked. Should have been blown dead. Didn't matter. They threw it to Fedoni. Fedoni ran a defender over. Then he bulldozed two guys into the end zone, looking solid. You've got a serious tight end group. You've got four guys now, or three guys at least, who are all going to be able to contribute as blockers and as receiving tight ends. So receivers are better, tight ends are better, quarterback plays better. The only thing that's going to be different is the running back room, because now I don't know what's going on with Irvin. Obviously, he's hurt. Ramir Johnson, another guy coming off injury. You got Emmett Johnson, who came on strong last year, but really only played in the last few games. Really played a significant role in the last few games and showed us what he could do. And then Dowdell, who's a new name. So different running back room, but receiver room, quarterbacks, tight ends, we got to see a lot. It's exciting. And this is a good point. Serial says Coleman at 220 now. This whole roster looks huge compared to Frost era, finally starting to have the NFL size. That's the beauty of this, especially on defense. There are such big bodies out there, and that's how you win in the Big Ten, and you compete with other teams who have massive players, like Michigan, who was able to dominate Nebraska last year. That Michigan dominant performance was the last dominant performance that we're going to see against the Nebraska team, because, at least I hope in the Rule era. Because now they've got their strength conditioning ready to roll. They've got the right players in who can carry the size they want them to carry. They're going to build the line of scrimmage on both sides. Micah Mazuka played today. He was pretty freaking big. So the offensive line is getting bigger. The defensive line. Cam says we've got two dudes named Mazuka. You've got the running back and you've got the offensive lineman. The running back is 5'8". The offensive lineman's like 6'3". They're brothers. Obviously, the older one played at Baylor, and then he played at Florida, started at both schools before he got here. Sounds like he's not in the running to be a starter yet, but he's still trying to work his issues out and find a way onto the field. But yeah, Nebraska's got two Mazukas who are going to get playing time. The younger Mazuka, the running back, it looks like he's kind of a third down back. So yeah, Nebraska's in a good position with the Mazukas. Let's see, I'm getting the more comments, seeing what you guys have to say. The best part about the live stream is I get to talk to multiple people and see what your guys' thoughts are. It's not just me spitting at you, right? One thing I did want to mention, I did see this in the chat earlier that I didn't bring up. Tristan Alvano. Someone said, we need another kicker, da da da. All right, Tristan Alvano came in, shanked his first kick today. His second kick was a little better, still missed it. It was like a 43-yarder. Third kick, I think it was like a 40-yarder, made it. Last year, Tristan Alvano came in as a true freshman, won the starting job right away. In the first part of the season, he missed a lot of kicks, right? Then as we got into it, he got more comfortable, more confident, and he started making them all. I felt like today was a bit reminiscent of last year. Alvano came in, started slow. By the end, he got hot. My hope is Alvano started slow last year in the opening weeks, and it took until the later weeks to get good. Now can he start slow in the early part of the game and then get better by the middle part, right? Nebraska's going to need a good kicker to win games because a lot of these 3-point moments, like Nebraska says, they're chasing 3. A lot of these 3-point moments come down to your field goal kicker. Can he make the kicks he's supposed to? When you line him up for a 35-yarder from the right hash, and there's a lot of pressure, maybe there's a little bit of wind, will he be able to put it through? That's the difference between winning and losing. Hopefully he cleans it up. Again, it's early on. It's the spring game. Nerves are high. Last year, the spring game was a clear picture for what the season would look like. This season, if it's the same, then we're not going to have to kick it that often. Nebraska's going to be able to lead a lot of touchdown drives. They're going to lead a lot of deep balls that get them inside the 5-yard line, and hopefully they're able to put it away with some strong runs between the tackles. But yeah, the Tristan Alvano thing, it's early. He's got a lot of time to make some kicks, get more comfortable, but I don't think they're going to be looking for a new kicker anytime soon. That guy has got a lot of leg and he's got a lot of potential. Let's see here. This is another good point. Emmett Johnson was making really good cuts. He would get up to the hole and he would follow his lead blockers. He would make moves to make sure that he could find space. And once he did find space, he was explosive in getting more yards. I love how explosive he is because that explosive energy leads to falling forward and picking up 2 or 3 more after you get hit. Being able to deliver the hit versus taking the hit is the difference between first downs and getting stopped and having to punt the ball. If Nebraska runs it on first down and a guy runs for 2 yards, gets stopped, falls forward for another 2, that's a 4-yard gain. As opposed to if he runs it for 2 yards, gets met, and gets pushed back, that was only a 2-yard gain. You run it 3 times at 4 yards each, falling forward, you've got a first down. You run it 3 times at 2 yards each, you get stuffed. So you want the running back who's going to lower his head and deliver the hit. And I just think Emmett Johnson's the guy who's going to do that for now. There was a lot of talk about, what's his name? Dylan Edwards potentially coming to Nebraska. And after watching today, seeing how this offense is going to operate, he would be an amazing fit. Now, I, again, am skeptical that he would come. I think he's probably going to go to Kansas State. From Kansas, was like a elementary school teammate of their quarterback, Avery Johnson. Obviously, Kansas State has a history of working well with small running backs like him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to go to Kansas State. But if Nebraska got him in, he would be the perfect addition next to Emmett Johnson, just because these running backs who can catch it out of the backfield and make moves in open space is really what's going to take this offense to the next level. This offense is going to be special this year. And again, I'm not trying to overhype things, but man, the offense looked freaking good. Let me show you these pictures. I was looking at these pictures from the spring game. Screen share. I didn't set this up yet, so I'm going to right now. Window capture, bang, bang. Nebraska Instagram. All right. So this is Dylan throwing the ball. He looks like an NFL quarterback. He looks the part size-wise, right? It's awesome to see guys who are developing into pro prospects. Look at Janiron Bonner, same thing. Big size, could actually be a pro prospect. He's not too small. Oh, that's DiCaprio Boodle and Cam Taylor Britt. Facilities. No. I want to go back to this. There we go. That's Alex Bullock. Let's see who else is in here. That's Dante Dowdell, Dwight Boodle, MJ Sherman. Somebody 6. I don't know who this is. Who has a 6? Look at this helmet. I like that the sticker already got popped off. The guys are out here hitting today. Heinrich Harburg, just a freaking beast. Can't tell who that is. That was Jeremiah Charles playing corner. He had one of the first. I think that's like the first tackle of the game on Dante Dowdell. He caught it on a screen pass. He came out of the backfield, and Jeremiah Charles brought him down, which I thought was impressive. You know, he's a track guy playing corner, and if Bly Hill's not going to play this year, Nebraska's going to need some corner depth. Not trying to foreshadow anything about Bly Hill, but you know, people were talking about the injury. And there's Daniel Kalen. You know, the one thing about Daniel Kalen, he standing next to Heinrich Harburg and Dylan Raiola, he looks just as big and just as beastly. I thought that was impressive to see. Hucking Fuskers, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, I like what Rule said about hitting high down at the goal line to eliminate the falling forward. You know, he made a lot of good comments about little fundamental techniques, and they pay attention to all these details that I think are NFL level. Obviously, he's a coach who comes from the NFL. His staff comes from the NFL, so they're going to pay attention to that type of stuff. But it's the little things, it's the little moments that can completely change how a game goes. If you hit a guy high, you're going to be able to bring him down, because if you hit him low, he's just going to lunge over you and fly. So being able to hit the guy high and drive back, it's what Nebraska did against Illinois. It's what Nebraska beat them on the goal line and force that turnover. And if they're going to be able to teach this to some of their guys, I just think Nebraska's going to have a lot more success in the red zone. They're going to have a lot more success creating turnovers. They're going to have a lot more success getting the ball back to the offense, and it's going to lead to more points. So it's exciting that Matt Rule is the coach who understands that. It's exciting that this staff is in tune and in touch with what it takes to win, as opposed to just being a team who comes out here and coaches a bunch of college kids up and just tries to win with speed, right? Not trying to say anything bad about previous coaching staffs or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's a refreshing feeling knowing that our staff, the Nebraska coaching staff, is elite, and there's a reason they're being paid what they're paid. One of the top paid coaching staffs in the entire country for really good reason. I also liked what Matt Rule said and his energy when Demetrius Bell got hurt. You could tell he was being asked questions by Kenny Bell and the other guy in the booth, and when he was talking with them on Big Ten Network, he saw Demetrius get hurt, and you know, he showed sign of concern, and he was trying to figure out what was going on with Demetrius while at the same time answering the questions. This dude's just a freaking professional at what he does. Hopeful Husker says, are there attendance numbers yet? It was 60,400, which is 6,000 less than last season, but obviously the weather, the tornadoes and all that probably impacted those numbers a little bit. And also, Nebraska only winning 5 games last year. Nebraska fans can only put up with so much, right? Winning 4 games, 5 games over and over and over eventually is going to take the wind out of the sails, and it finally has. But Nebraska's finding ways to still keep people invigorated, still keep people excited. I'm doing my part. I'm doing the best to stay excited and get you guys pumped up full of Kool-Aid to believe that this team can do more than what they've done in the past, because we're tired of garbage. We're tired of losing. We want to see more. James says, can't forget Carter Nelson coming in. Man, so go back to the tight end conversation. We saw Ian Flint, we saw Ian Borkacher, we saw Thomas Fedoni, we saw Luke Lindenmeyer, we saw somebody else. His last name starts with an E. He's a true freshman, I think. I haven't heard of him before. But anyway, now you got to add Carter Nelson to the fold, who's going to come back in July, June, he'll enroll for summer. I don't know how much Carter Nelson's going to play out the gate, but just the fact that the tight end room is this deep and they're being developed. Oh, Ish Smith Flores, he had a one-hand catch down low. He had another crazy catch at midfield. I mean, there is so much potential in that tight end room, and you really see what they're trying to build towards. They want to be an NFL offense. The best offenses in the NFL have a tight end outlet. You've got Mark Andrews with Lamar Jackson. You've got... Who's that? Who's the tight end for Houston? I can't remember his name. You've got obviously Travis Kelce. If you go back, you've got a bunch. You've got the Tom Brady with Gronk, and you've got not Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter. There's so many names I can think of off the top of my head. And if I go and I show you guys this tweet I was looking at, oh my God, it shows the history of great tight ends. Dallas Clark with whoever the quarterback was, it doesn't. Oh, Peyton Manning. You had the tight end at Antonio Gates with I can't remember all the names, guys. I'm not an NFL expert, but the point is, tight end play is massive in the NFL. It's massive at the college level. If you can get guys to be explosive, go look at Brock Bowers at Georgia. Nebraska knows what they're building towards, and they're trying to get tight ends in position. They have a lot of options. It's exciting from a tight end front. Does Nebraska go after Cormani McClain now that Hill is questionable this fall? I don't think they're going to go after Cormani McClain. I think Cormani or McLean is going to go to like USF or something like that. I saw he was talking to big schools like Georgia and all that, but then when he narrowed down some choices, it looked like group of 5 schools. I don't know what's going on with Cormani McLean. There's a reason he failed at Colorado. It's not like Deion is some idiot coach and he's losing all his players. There's something going on with guys who want to leave Colorado because they're not getting on the field as fast as they thought they would, or they're in the doghouse for some other reason. TriStar says, Nebraska is my sleeper team in the Big Ten. Sorry, guys. I'm super congested. I've been sick this week, and I'm like trying not to like be gross, but you know, there's moments when I have to like... Okay. Anyway, TriStar says Nebraska's his sleeper team in the Big Ten. You know, I think Nebraska's a good one to watch. I think Rutgers is a good one to watch. I really like Northwestern as a sleeper team. I think there's a lot. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make it through this stream without like coughing up. Anyway, sleeper teams. Who else do I like? I like USC this year, but I wouldn't call them a sleeper. They're probably going to come out, open up top 25. If Nebraska, this is how Nebraska shuts down that sleeper team deal, right? Because their schedule lines up so perfectly. Win your first game against UTEP, which really obviously is a win. Win your first game against Colorado. Win the next couple and start off 4-0. Nebraska's now a serious contender because they just need to win or upset 1 or 2 teams along the way. They're going to be favorites in almost all their games. Upset a USC. Not going to upset Ohio State, I don't think, but potentially upset an Ohio State. And now Nebraska's competing for the Big Ten. They're going to be favorites in almost all of their games if they win those first 4. So it's really exciting. I was more impressed by Raiola when he was backed up on his own 4-yard line. And he took the 2s down the field. He played well with the 1s, 2s, and 3s. So what Raiola did that was impressive, there was a penalty when they were on their 5-yard line. It brought him back to their 1 or their 2 or whatever it was. Raiola's in the end zone. He has great pocket awareness, and he fires one 20 yards downfield to Alex Bullock, I think it was. And Alex Bullock catches the ball, and that obviously converted the first down, got him off their heels, and now Nebraska was able to run an efficient play from there. Dylan Raiola being aware of his surroundings and being aware in the pocket will completely change this offense, because a lot of Nebraska's issues in the past were quarterbacks who would just try and scramble out, who would get nervous, who wouldn't see what was coming behind them. And then as the pocket collapsed, Nebraska would either end up with a turnover, they would throw an interception, or they would just have to punt the ball. Dylan's eyes are always downfield. He makes his reads quickly. He knows who his outlets are, and he fires it as soon as he sees a guy open. So I don't want to hype up Dylan too much, but this guy's the truth. Woogie says, why is Colorado so chaotic? I think Colorado is so chaotic because they've got a coach who's desperate to win right now. I think that Deion came in and said, I want to win immediately because I have 2 players who I only get for 2 years. Shador and Travis Hunter are both going to be gone in the draft next year. They're both going to be first-round draft picks, if not top 5 or top 10 picks. When you have 2 players that are that talented that you know you could win a championship with, you need to maximize the talent around them to make sure you can win games. So I think Deion's pushing a little bit too hard. He's not building the culture. He's not building the team. He's forcing them to win today, which is extremely hard. And I would actually say impossible, or at least impossible up to this point. You can argue that TCU did it back in 2022, but it's really hard to come and take over a new program, completely flip your team. I mean, Sonny Dykes didn't have to do that at TCU. He didn't have to bring in 60 new players. Both of these classes, both these transfer classes, have had over 30 new players added to their roster. And it's just really hard to win with an entirely new team. I would venture to say that's impossible. So I think the issue at Colorado is players feel that pressure. And they're like, Deion's just trying to win for him right now. Deion sees that he's got Shador and he's got Travis, and he wants to build what he can around them to win at a high level right now. But the cost is he's not building the team. He's not building the culture. He's not building the school. He's not building what's around him. It's just press. And Unfortunately, it hasn't worked yet. So that's my guess on why Colorado's so chaotic. And in turn, a lot of these players are like, they're feeling the pressure to win right now, so they want to play immediately. And if they're not getting to play immediately and they're not feeling like they're being developed the right way, then they're going to want to leave. I don't know what happened with Dylan Edwards, but with Cormani McClain, I just have to assume he's like, well, the way that Prime was talking was win right now. And if I'm not playing right now, he might not think I'm good enough and I need to go somewhere else. He's been in the doghouse. And guys like that want to get out. So yeah, that's why Colorado's chaotic, in my opinion. But who knows? I mean, there's a lot happening behind closed doors, right? I like Dion. Keep in mind, I think he's good energy. I think he's a fun coach. It's exciting. Their program's, what it is, but they're doing it different. It's every coach has their own way of doing things. And what's interesting is a lot of people like to knock guys for doing something different. But the reality is there are certain people in history who've gone against the grain and they've been extremely successful, or they've done something unprecedented or something that's never been done before, obviously. And we all go back, and hindsight's 2020, we all praise them. But at the time, think of all the people who bashed them in the moment and said, this is the wrong way to do it. And you're an idiot and you should be fired and da, 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 da. And, because they went and did it their way, they had some insanely unique results, and those results ended up in wins and completely changed the trajectory of their life and the way things are done in the future. So it's hard to knock a guy like for me, it's hard to knock a guy like Dion for doing it his way, because he's done it his way his entire life. And guess what? His way's worked out. So it's not working yet, but maybe he'll figure some things out and they'll be better. My hope is that they don't figure things out too quick, because I need Nebraska to beat them this year. That game is so important to the University of Nebraska. It's so important to this team. It's so important to their season that if Colorado did beat Nebraska, it would really put a dampering feeling on this season. It would be freaking tough. Jeremy says Colorado spent more in NIL than every other team except Texas. I think that's a lie. I don't know that to be true at all. They're not even getting huge name players. They got a few good players who would be expensive, but a lot of the players they got were backups from other schools. I don't know that to be true, Jeremy. Who spent the most money is Ohio State. Their roster is the most expensive roster in college football. I think that's undisputed. I think that they are spending the most in terms of coaching, in terms of roster, in terms of marketing, in terms of everything else. Ohio State is so desperate to win a championship. They are far and away the team with the biggest NIL right now. They went out and they got some of the biggest name players around the country, and they stole them. I mean, Ohio State's on another level. I don't think Colorado compares. Let's see. Woogie says it's all about Dion and not the team. Rule's the opposite of Dion. And I think that's why Nebraska fans like Rule so much, right? Matt Rule embodies what Nebraska fans are. It's about the process. It's about respect. It's about honor. It's about legacy. It's about building something that lasts. It's everything that Nebraska fans talk about and preach in their daily lives about their own lives and their own business, their families. Imagine if Dion would have come to Nebraska. I don't want to talk too much about Nebraska, or talk too much about Colorado and Dion, but man, it's interesting. Let's see. Good this year. Simple Jack says, we're going to be good this year. If Bly Hill is out, what do you think about moving Hartzog back to corner? So right now, Hartzog and Marquise Buford are the two starting safeties. Deshaun Singleton would be the third safety. He's coming off injury, obviously. I think that there are other corners who they're trying to work in. You saw Jeremiah Charles play a bunch today. Dwight Boodle, Ethan Nation. I don't think Nebraska's lacking. I don't think Nebraska's lacking corners. If you go down the list after Bly Hill, it's Tommy Hill, Jeremiah Charles, Ethan Nation, Dwight Boodle. That's four right there. Was Dwight Boodle playing safety today? Now that I think about it, I can't remember if I saw him lined up at safety or not. He's number 21. Let me know in the comments. But if you talk about those four corners right there, you would hope one of those three behind the two Hills could develop into a formidable starter. And I just don't think you would need to move Hartzog. If you've got three solid safeties rotating in Buford, Singleton, and Hartzog, then you don't want to screw up that formation and that rotation, because those three guys are all spectacular players. I think all three of those could potential play in the NFL. I don't know. Hartzog's pretty small, but I think they all could potentially play in the NFL. Let's see. Joseph says, Rule in his press conference said this about Fedoni. Every school in the country is trying to get him to leave and go there. Special season brewing for him. You know, it's so interesting. Fedoni came to Nebraska as one of the top tight end recruits in the country. He was Carter Nelson before Carter Nelson was Carter Nelson. Think about that. A lot of us forget that because that was back in COVID era, 4 years ago. He's been at Nebraska for a long time. He comes to Nebraska, all the hype in the world, gets injured. And we all, I don't want to say we lose faith, but we all questioned whether he's going to be able to come back and whether he's going to be able to be a starting tight end. And last year he proved that he could. He did great. Fedoni had a really strong season for his first year back off injury. And then today in the spring game, he came out and was spectacular. And he was a guy who I was afraid could potentially leave in the portal because there's a couple things. He could have felt like Nebraska's passing offense isn't going to utilize me enough because we don't have a quarterback who can get me the ball. That was one issue. Number two could have been, I just need new energy and I need a new staff who can work with me and give me a chance and doesn't think about my injuries and doesn't think about what I haven't done yet. But then he got Matt Rule in and Matt Rule is able to, inject new life. So Fedoni's a guy who is on the brink of something great. He's got Borkacher out there with him. Nebraska wants to hit the tight ends like I talked about before. The best offenses in the NFL all have superstar tight ends. So it's a massive year for him, and I really hope he succeeds because he's been loyal to Nebraska. He's been here for a long time. He's a solid player, and you just want him to win. At least I want him to win. Brady says, does it seem weird that Notre Dame isn't thriving more with NIL? To be honest, what's interesting is I pay attention to a lot of schools around the country, but I don't pay attention to Notre Dame. And I think part of it is because they're not in a conference. Like, I pay attention to the SEC because I have friends who are big Arkansas fans. I have friends who are Ole Miss and Georgia fans, Bama, whatever. And so because I talk to them about their schools, automatically by default, I start talking about the other schools around them and start looking into them. And we start talking about those teams because they play them. Notre Dame's not a team I pay attention to because outside of the football season, when I watch them twice a year play USC, Ohio State, Stanford, whoever, there's nothing going on with them where they're competing with these other schools. They're not in the Big Ten taking away recruit. I mean, they do compete with Nebraska for recruits to some degree, but for the most part, they're kind of on their own island. So I don't pay attention much to Notre Dame, and I don't know what their NIL packages look like or what their NIL program looks like. I don't even know how good their recruiting classes have been as of recent, which is so weird to say. Notre Dame's kind of irrelevant in my world. I'm not saying they're irrelevant, just in my world, I don't pay as much attention to them. My world is really where I'm from, LA. So a lot of USC, a lot of UCLA. All my friends, my dad went to USC, my sister and a lot of other friends I have went to UCLA. So I have a lot going on with that. In turn, I pay attention to Oregon, Cal, Stanford, all the Southern California area recruiting schools because I'm from there. A lot of my friends played at those schools. I have a friend who played football at Arizona, so I talk to him a lot about Arizona. So my world's really Pac-12, and then Big Ten because of Nebraska, Big 12 a little bit because Nebraska's history in the Big 12, and then SEC a little bit because I've got a lot of friends who went to SEC schools, and obviously SEC is a big conference. ACC, I know what's going on with the ACC because I bet on football and I watch a lot of the games, right? But again, I don't know many people who went to ACC schools, and it's just not that interesting to me. So ACC and Notre Dame are a little bit displaced in my life, and I don't know much about them. Bolson said, did Jaden Doss play today? I don't know that answer. I didn't see him out there. I heard, I don't know this to be true. This could be a total rumor. I heard he was working at corner last week. Don't know it to be true. I heard it and I thought, that would be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. He's a really good athlete. Maybe he's out there trying to get reps in, see if he's a better corner. Like I talked about earlier, you never know what a guy's best position is till he gets out there and plays it. But I didn't see Jaden Doss. But there were a lot of guys out there, like number 12. People were saying it was Rex Guthrie. Well, Rex Guthrie's white and number 12 was black. So it wasn't Rex Guthrie wearing number 12. So who was number 12 out there, right? So there were a few guys that I don't know who they were because they were wearing different numbers than what it said on the online roster. So yeah, I don't know who all was out there. And defense was hard for me to keep up with. Defense and offensive line, and defensive line. There was so much rotation going on, and the offensive line was playing both sides. I felt like I saw every single lineman out there. So, yeah, I don't know. Here we go. What's on Tap Nebraska says, here are the NIL team rankings. Okay, NILT rankings from On3. Texas, 19.9. Alabama, 16. Ohio State, 13.6. USC, 13. Georgia, 13. Colorado, 12. Michigan, 11. Oregon, 11. If those are official numbers, Colorado's spending. But I think Colorado's spending on Travis Hunter and on Shador, right? Ohio State, I know what they're spending on. Texas, I know what they're spending on. Are they spending in the transfer portal, or are they spending on their current players? I think Colorado's spending on their current players. James says Jaden Doss played at both receiver and corner today. Thank you, James, for that. James, what number was he wearing? What number was Jaden Doss wearing? Because I could not tell. Was he number 12? No, he was number 12. Who was number 12? Can anybody figure out who number 12 was? He had a lot of tackles on defense. I don't know if he was playing safety or corner, but he was wearing white, I think. It's hard to remember. I watched so much spring game. Bogo says Notre Dame risks being left behind with super conferences. Well, that's a fact. Notre Dame needs to join a conference. Otherwise, I won't pay attention to them. Brady says, we need to get Fedoni and Carter Nelson on the field at the same time. It would be a matchup nightmare. You know, is Carter Nelson going to be ready to play right away? I don't know the answer. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see them both out there. I know that Carter Nelson's the next up after Borkature and Fedoni leave as a receiving tight end. We'll see. Colorado game is a must-win this season, no question. Woogie says, College Football with Sam is here. Guys, I did a live stream with College Football with Sam yesterday, I think. He and I talked for like 2 hours about all kinds of stuff, Nebraska. You can go check out that video on his channel. I really like supporting Sam. Sam's a college kid, goes to Michigan, does his research, really intelligent about football. He's like 20 years old. He's awesome. So if you want to watch Sam content with me, it's on his channel. James says he doesn't know what number Jaden Doss wore, but that Matt Rule mentioned him in the press conference. Well, guys, I don't know either. What I do know is today was fun to watch, just like Huron said. I'm excited that we're getting closer to season. I'm pumped. We had 450 people on this entire time. It was a great stream. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. I mean, we're going to see the injury report after this game. And then we'll know really what Nebraska's got to work on going into summer, see what kind of position battles are. I've got plenty of content to make. I might make a video here this week. Maybe I should. I'll think about it. If I come up with a good, compelling topic, I'll make one. But content really starts back up a couple months from now. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today. It was fun watching the spring game. It was fun getting back and talking with you. But until next time, guys, what is it? Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.